Today, we're going to continue in verse 5, and we're going to see this, that the writer is relentless. He's delivering one life and death principle after another. He just keeps stacking these things. And so it's just intensity that is pouring forth from this entire epistle. You look at it in its totality, it's one of the most intense readings you'll get. Let your conduct be without covetousness. I want to put the Greek up here, and it's a philarguros, but it really means just simply not possessing that love for the world. You don't possess the love of money. You don't have that greedy heart. You don't have a heart that is geared towards covetousness. And so the writer comes out here right off the bat. He's like, this is what you're supposed to be. Your heart needs to be, your character needs to be without this. Now, when we think of this, when I think of it anyways, when you start talking about covetousness, immediately my mind goes to the 10 commandments, the Aseret HaDevarim, the final commandment, Lo tachmod, you shall not covet. You're not to covet your neighbor's house. You're not to covet your neighbor's wife. You're not to covet his manservants, his female servants, his ox, his donkey. And then he sets off with this final phrase, nor anything that is your neighbor's. Why? Because covetousness, as you get to Colossians chapter 3, verses 5 and 6, he tells you covetousness is idolatry. And this is where you get into Ezekiel 14. You are putting idols up in your heart. Israel had lifted idols up in her heart, and the Lord was enraged with Israel because they did this. And then when you look at what Paul says, as he's talking about covetousness, which is idolatry, the very next verse he says, the wrath of God is coming for you. You will face the wrath of God. And so this is a very serious topic. You don't usually hear covetousness taught with such intensity on a life and death scale. In fact, I can tell you, even in my own life, in regard to the 10 commandments, this is one that just, you don't give it a whole lot of thought sometimes, and maybe it's because we don't want to. But we don't put this in a category, man, if you do this, if you don't take every thought captive to the obedience of Christ, you're going to die. Now, the writer goes on and says this. He gives us the antidote to covetousness. It's very simple. Be content with such things as you have. For he himself has said, I will never leave you nor forsake you. There's the antidote. If you want to fight and combat covetousness, you need this. You need contentment. You need to be able to grasp this. And so to help us do this, I want to break into 1 Timothy chapter 6, and we're going to begin here with this. We'll build upon what the writer's saying. Now, godliness, look at this, with contentment is great gain. In other words, what the writer is saying, you want true riches. Covetousness is birthed out of desire. You want to be great. You want great possessions. You want wealth. You want whatever it is. This is what it's birthed out of. And what Paul says, he says, listen, do you want to truly be rich? Then get contentment. Have godliness with contentment. This is how we do it. Now moving on to verse 7. For we brought nothing into this world, and it is certain we can carry nothing out. Many, many years ago, I saw this show, and it was one of those weird shows where the whole idea, it's kind of a game show where you got to fill as much as you can. You have a cart, and you can run into this store, and you get like 30 seconds to a minute. You got to fill that cart with as much as you can, and whatever you feel, you get the dollar amount. This show is amazing because it reminds me of this world and the pace of this world. And it's like a snapshot of how we function in this world. We have our little carts, and we're running through, trying to beat the clock as quickly as we can, shove as much stuff in our cart as we can. See, but, let me take this show a step further. What would happen if they go through this? They go through all that pain with their cart and stuff falling out all over, and them trying to get all this stuff in, and then only to come to the end of it and expect to go out the front door with that cart because I collected all this stuff, only to be stopped by someone and said, well, no, the cart stays. Everything in your cart stays here. You can go. What a buzzkill. This is what Paul is saying. The Apostle Paul is saying you can run around like a madman, mad woman, and try to collect all the stuff you can. You're not leaving with it. You're not going to get out the door. And then he goes on and he says this, and having food and clothing, with these we shall be content. You think of the Western mindset? This is poverty. If what you're telling me, I just need to have just the clothes, the shirt on my back, and my daily food, that's poverty. How do you fare in poverty? How would you fare just having the shirt on your back and your daily food that just is enough to get you through? You don't starve to death. Can you be content in this context? Because I'm going to tell you right now, we find out who people really are when all of a sudden they start to lose all their stuff. I think of Matthew 19 because the young rich man, he comes to Yeshua, and you guys know this passage by heart. He comes to him and says, what must I do to inherit the kingdom of heaven? And Yeshua gives him, you got to keep the commandments. He's like, yeah, I've done this. One of the most terrifying things about that story is he's like, I'm good. I've done this. What do I still lack? And you can only imagine. Now, it says young man, so thinking he's riding high here, he's doing good. Yeshua's about to flip his world upside down in a matter of seconds, just by this simple phrase, well, one thing you lack. Here's the deal. Go sell everything you have, give it away, and come and follow me. That one statement flipped his world upside down because you know what it said? It said he went away sorrowful. He was devastated, totally debilitated. Because where was his heart? It was with his stuff. And what did Yeshua, by that statement, he ripped out his heart. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Moving on to verse 9. But those who desire to be rich, in other words, you've given your heart over to covetousness. You desire to be rich, what happens? They fall into a temptation and snare, and into many foolish and harmful lusts, which drown men in destruction and perdition. That perdition means total ruin, total loss. In other words, when you go after the things of the world, they're going to bury you in them. You're going to get buried in it. Covetousness, understand something, it doesn't take prisoners. It leaves no survivors. Verse 10, for the love of money is the root of all kinds of evil, for which some have strayed from the faith in their greediness and pierced themselves through with many sorrows. Remember what Paul says to the Corinthians in his second epistle? He starts out great. He goes, godly sorrow, that's wonderful. Godly sorrow produces repentance and it leads to salvation, not to be regretted. But the sorrow of the world produces death. In other words, if you're struggling with depression and you're upset because you don't have this or you don't have that, your life isn't where you really wanted it to be in comparison to everyone else. As you're looking at this, you have a serious problem. Godly sorrows, for death is working in you, and it's leading you off a cliff.
Hey there, this is Mike at Corner Fringe Ministries. Thanks for watching our video. If you liked the video or it encouraged you, do us a favor. Hit the like button, don't forget to hit the share, and if you haven't done so already, please hit the subscribe button. Now, if you want to watch the rest of this video, hit the button here. And if you want to watch the rest of this series, you can check it out here. And don't forget, you can download the Corner Fringe Ministries app today on any of your Play stores. Thanks for joining us at Corner Fringe Ministries.